My best friend woke up from a car accident and claimed she had traveled back from 10 years in the future. She urged me to break up with my current boyfriend, Liam, as soon as possible, or else he would cause my downfall in 10 years. And my archenemy, Ethan, sacrificed himself in the future to avenge me. I had the doctor check her again, and after confirming there were no issues, I completed the discharge procedures. I drove my best friend, Emily, back home.
Sophia, you have to believe me.
The doctor said there are no after effects.
Perhaps my gaze was too straightforward, as Emily insisted on taking me to see Liam immediately. That evening, following Emily's directions, we arrived at a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. The environment there was more rundown compared to the city center. We sat in the car for less than 20 minutes when a couple walked out of an old building in front of us. They were hugging each other, stopping every few steps to kiss.
The lighting in the old neighborhood was not very good, but I recognized him instantly. Liam was wearing the same clothes he had on when I saw him that morning, and the girl in his arms was petite, with short hair just reaching her collarbone. I froze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white.
Scumbag.
I admit, before seeing this, what Emily said seemed absurd to me. But now, I had to face her words seriously.
Let's confront them now.
No rush, since he likes to act so much, let's play along.
Looking at the two figures walking away, I buckled my seatbelt and drove off with Emily. Liam came from an ordinary family and worked hard to get into a university in the capital. We met in the lab. He was gentle, polite, and always took care of me, a junior student. I quickly fell for him.
According to what I know, Liam was with you for money. In the end, he pushed you off a high-rise to monopolize the family assets.
After graduation, I did give him a lot of good resources. Dad entrusted me with an entertainment company, and because he trusted me, he let Liam manage it.
After finding out the exact address of Liam and the girl, the next day, I brought a few reporters to their place. When the door opened, Liam was only wrapped in a towel around his waist, with bruises on his body indicating what had happened the night before. His expression froze when he saw me. Before he could say anything, the reporters barged into the bedroom, snapping photos of the person on the bed, with flashes going off continuously.
The girl on the bed, Mia, hid under the covers in fright. She was the actress my company was promoting. I didn't know how many such transactions Liam had done behind my back. I felt nauseous and leaned against the wall, dry heaving for a long time.
Liam had already dressed and came over to support me, his concerned look making me even more nauseous.
We're done.
I raised my hand to push him away and left. Just as I got into the car, Liam chased after me, shouting,
I'm sorry, baby!
Before he could get close, I quickly rolled up the window and drove away. The next day, the news was filled with headlines like Rising Star uses unspoken rules to get ahead, and it even trended. After firing Liam, I also terminated the contract with the actress. It seemed Liam only now realized that everything he had was given by me. But I was taking it all back.
So, you're saying Ethan likes me?
I asked, wrapping a piece of grilled meat in lettuce and popping it into my mouth.
Yes, I'm sure.
Emily, sitting across from me, pursed her lips and nodded vigorously. How could that be? Ethan and I had known each other since middle school, for over 10 years now. Not to mention any romantic feelings, we would argue every time we met. It was dinner time and the barbecue restaurant was packed, with many people waiting for a table at the door. The sofa beside me suddenly sank, and I paused my grilling to look over. Speak of the devil, Ethan and his friends sat at our table.
No seats left, let's share a table.
I stuffed another lettuce wrap into my mouth and glanced at him.
Dude, Why are you dressed so formally for a barbecue?
Ethan's suit looked particularly out of place in the barbecue restaurant. Thinking of what Emily had said, I looked at him with a bit of curiosity. But I had to admit, his face paired with the suit was perfect, with deep-set features and slightly upturned eyes giving him a roguish charm.
Just got off work, didn't have time to change.
He said, picking up the utensils the waiter had just brought and unceremoniously taking the meat I had just grilled. I was stunned for a moment, then glared at him. Ethan, sensing my intense gaze, looked at me and said,
It was burnt.
but he still ate all the meat in his bowl. I barely restrained myself from punching him. He was still as annoying as ever. Imagining him saying I love you to me with a deep, affectionate look made me shiver. How terrifying. He was grilling the new meat the waiter had brought, and after finishing a batch, he put half of it in my bowl.
Why don't you introduce us?
His friend finally spoke up. Ethan, flipping the meat, nodded towards me.
My friend, Jack.
Then he turned to Emily.
Old classmate, Emily.
Finally, all eyes were on me.
This one is called Dummy.
He finished with a barely noticeable smile at the corner of his mouth. I couldn't hold back any longer and punched him in the arm.
I'm Sophia, also an old classmate.
I smiled slightly at Jack. Jack enthusiastically toasted with us.
You're really something, having so many good-looking old classmates and not introducing any to me.
Emily is single, Sophia has a boyfriend.
Sorry, just broke up.
I said nonchalantly.
When did that happen?
Ethan was shocked for a few seconds, then quickly returned to his usual self.
Yesterday.
While we were talking, the two across from us had already exchanged WeChat contacts.
If the company needs any help, feel free to ask.
I agreed.
Then he went to the front desk to pay the bill. I watched his back, lost in thought. After the news broke last time, netizens were furious with the company's management. The company's stock price was plummeting. I logged into the company's official account and posted a tweet. The gist was that I had been blind and trusted the wrong person, but now I had taken back control of the company and would prevent such behavior in the future. That night, I received a text message from an unknown number.
Sophia, if you don't give me half of the shares, I'll release the private photos of the company's artists. You don't want the company's reputation to be ruined, do you?
Liam was really pushing for a showdown. The girl on the bed, Mia, hid under the covers in fright. She was the actress my company was promoting.
Serious, it's not what it looks like, I swear.
I didn't know how many such transactions Liam had done behind my back. I felt nauseous and leaned against the wall, dry heaving for a long time. Liam had already dressed and came over to support me, his concerned look making me even more nauseous.
Hopeful, please, let me explain.
I raised my hand to push him away.
Angry, we're done.
I left. Just as I got into the car, Liam chased after me, shouting.
Shouting, I'm sorry, baby.
Before he could get close, I quickly rolled up the window and drove away. The next day, the news was filled with headlines like rising star uses unspoken rules to get ahead, and it even trended. After firing Liam, I also terminated the contract with Mia. It seemed Liam only now realized that everything he had was given by me. But I was taking it all back. I worked late into the night and discovered that Liam had been embezzling company funds, using my name to throw his weight around. With the evidence in hand, I took him to court. On the day he was imprisoned, I received a call from the hospital. Aunt had finally been freed from her suffering and passed away. I informed Liam of this, and he charged at me. In the next moment, a tall figure stood in front of me. Ethan was there, waiting for the final verdict. Liam ran a few steps before being quickly pinned to the ground by the court police. He knew Aunt's passing wasn't my doing, he just wanted to vent all his emotions on me. A familiar scene, the four of us stood facing each other.
Spill it. When did you two get together?
The night before, Emily had texted me.
I'm with Jack now, and we want to invite you and Ethan to dinner to thank you.
Ethan and I were both shocked by the rapid development of this couple.
5 days ago.
You guys are something.
I clapped my hands twice, offering my congratulations. Emily, now nourished by love, seemed even more adorable in her every move.
I hope you can soon win over the person you like too.
I looked at the dish that had just been placed on my plate and then at the person who had served it to me.
Don't worry about me.
When we parted ways, Emily went home with me.
Will you two still be together in 10 years?
Yes, but under normal circumstances, we wouldn't have met this early or developed this quickly. It must be the effect of our previous actions.
The next day, I walked into the office, greeted by the shocked gazes of the employees. I had arranged clerical jobs for the artists who had testified in court. As for the remaining artists who had been involved with Liam, they wouldn't get away without paying the penalty fees. Even though the company had been hit with bad press, many recent graduates still came for interviews. After several rounds of approval, the list that reached me had about a dozen names left. I put them through the most rigorous training, leaving them with almost no free time except for meals and sleep. After a few months, those who couldn't handle the high-intensity lifestyle left the company on their own. Those who stayed were the best, and I certainly wouldn't let their hard work go unrewarded. I gave them the best resources, and they appeared in several popular dramas. I searched their names on social media, browsing the real-time comments. Most of the feedback was positive, praising them for their detailed performances, even as supporting actors, sometimes surpassing the leads. I didn't let them play lead roles right away to create this contrast. With their young and attractive faces, their popularity quickly soared. Whenever a drama was mentioned, their names were always associated with it. People discovered that these new faces all came from my entertainment company. They now represented the company's image, and to boost the company's credibility, we had to deliver impressive results. I stretched and prepared to leave work, picking up my phone and looking at the empty message bar with some surprise. Ethan and I seemed to have formed a certain tacit understanding. We would have dinner together after work, go out together during breaks, and occasionally watch a movie. But neither of us was willing to break this unspoken agreement.
After a busy day, I realized he hadn't asked me out for dinner today. I called him. The phone rang only a few times before he picked up.
Cool, what's up?
Tentatively, aren't we having dinner today?
Serious, no, we won't be having dinner together anymore.
I was full of questions, wondering what had gotten into him. Before I could ask further, he hung up. I opened the chat window with Emily and typed furiously on the keyboard. After venting about Ethan, I felt much better. I drove home and ordered takeout. Before going to bed, I received a call from Emily.
Serious, I need to tell you something important. During a date with Jack, I learned that Ethan has been very busy lately because his dad suddenly revealed the existence of an illegitimate child. This child is only 2 months younger than Ethan. Ethan's dad's health is deteriorating, and the appearance of this illegitimate child is clearly a move to fight for the family inheritance. The worst part is that his ailing dad wants them to compete fairly. It's just a pretext to watch his 2 sons tear each other apart.
Emily said that 10 years later, Ethan would be harmed by this illegitimate brother and Liam working together. Knowing it was a trap, Ethan still went to the meeting to avenge me. They planned to lock Ethan in a basement and set it on fire. However, Ethan ended up trapping them in the basement too, and all 3 perished together. It had been a year since Liam was imprisoned. Today, I didn't go to the company but instead went to the detention center. Thinking about what Liam did to Ethan, I wished I could end him myself. Staring at the person behind the glass, I picked up the phone beside me.
Serious, you seem to be doing well in there.
Liam looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, and he had lost a lot of weight. Hearing my words, he laughed, his whole body shaking with the effort. Suddenly, he stopped laughing and looked at me with a playful expression.
Playful, I never told you this, but the ginger tea in the lab back then wasn't placed by me. It was Ethan, the person you hated the most at the time. I left the lab late that day and saw him put the thermos in your locker. I just took the credit.
For a moment, I felt my blood freeze, looking at him in disbelief. After college, my menstrual periods were always painful and unbearable, and I had fainted from the pain at its worst. One night, I left the lab around midnight. Suddenly, a sharp pain hit my abdomen, and I squatted down to alleviate it. The pain didn't subside but instead intensified, and I blacked out. When I woke up, I was lying in the school clinic. The on-duty doctor told me to rest a bit before leaving.
Puzzled, who brought me here so late?
Friendly, a tall boy. He looked so worried when he brought you in that I thought you were a couple. But after learning you were fine, he left.
I wanted to thank him but couldn't find him anywhere, even after posting on the campus wall for a month. Later, every time I had my period, someone would leave a red and green thermos in my locker in the lab, filled with warm ginger tea. Miraculously, drinking it eased my pain significantly. I would wash the thermos and put it back, and the next day, it would be refilled with ginger tea. This continued for 5 days each month, and on the 6th day, the thermos would disappear. I asked around the lab, but no one knew who was leaving it. The girl on the bed, Mia, hid under the covers in fright. She was the actress my company was promoting.
Angry, how many of these transactions has Liam done behind my back?
I felt nauseous and leaned against the wall, dry heaving for a long time.
Concerned, are you okay? Let me help you.
Angry, no, we're done.
I pushed him away and left. Just as I got into the car, Liam chased after me, shouting.
Shouting, I'm sorry, baby.
Before he could get close, I quickly rolled up the window and drove away. The next day, the news was filled with headlines like "Rising Star Uses Unspoken Rules to Get Ahead," and it even trended. After firing Liam, I also terminated the contract with the actress. It seemed Liam only now realized that everything he had was given by me. But I was taking it all back. Emily finally let go of me as we walked out of the bar. The evening breeze gradually blew away the effects of the alcohol.
Do you know who he is?
Ethan's half-brother.
You know and still gave him your contact information.
I didn't continue because Ethan was standing right behind Emily. His gaze swept over me, and he nodded before walking inside. The stabbing pain in my heart numbed my senses. Actually, I was here tonight to fish, and I didn't expect David to take the bait himself. I wouldn't give him a chance to hurt Ethan. As expected, the day after he got my contact information, David asked me out for dinner.
Miss Sophia, I fell in love with you at first sight.
Cough cough, you're not my type.
No problem. I'll let you get to know me slowly. You know Ethan, right?
Yes, but I've disliked him since middle school. Do you know him too?
He's my half-brother.
He emphasized the word brother heavily.
Oh, then I shouldn't have badmouthed him in front of you. Sorry.
It's okay. I don't have a good relationship with him either.
My phone suddenly rang, and the caller ID showed Pig Trotter. I hung up and put my phone on silent.
Why didn't you answer?
Spam call.
While David went to the restroom, I installed a virus on his phone that could track his location at any time. It took less than 10 seconds to install, worth every penny.
My biological mother was harmed by Ethan's mother.
I was surprised that he would share such a private matter with someone he had only known for 2 days.
I'm glad you don't have a good relationship with him because I want him to atone for his mother's sins.
He smiled, his sharp eyes seemingly piercing through me. I didn't say anything, wiping the cold sweat from my palms with a tissue. I almost got fooled by his appearance, forgetting that he was a ruthless person. Back home, I called Ethan.
How do you know David? Were you with him today? He's not a good person, stay away from him.
Aren't you getting married? Do you still have time to worry about my affairs?
There was a moment of silence on the other end before he hung up. Half an hour later, I leaned against the door, looking at the person outside.
Won't you let me in?
In the dimly lit hallway, Ethan stood in black casual clothes, his hair still wet, probably just out of the shower.
If you have something to say it here. My home doesn't welcome married men.
Ethan looked down at me, and after a few seconds of confrontation, I was suddenly lifted off the ground, his arm around my waist, the scent of grapefruit enveloping me. Inside, he closed the door behind him and threw me onto the sofa.
You're trespassing!
The room went dark as Ethan leaned over, his hands on the sofa, pressing down on me. The scent of grapefruit hit me again.
Sophia, you really have no heart.
Ethan's fingers gently caressed my face before he leaned down and bit my lip hard. I winced in pain and, summoning some unknown strength, pushed him away.
I have no heart. I shouldn't have realized my feelings only when you were about to get married.
The room fell silent. After a while, the pillow was suddenly pulled away. Ethan placed the pillow aside, sat down, and turned my body towards him, hugging me tightly. His breath on my neck made me feel a bit ticklish.
I'm sorry. I was worried David would hurt you, so I deliberately distanced myself from you.
Are you not getting married then?
It was just to deceive David. You must stay away from him.
I casually responded, not telling him about the tracker I had installed on David's phone.
Dry your hair before you leave, don't catch a cold.
Can I not go back?
In your dreams.
In the days that followed, Ethan and I continued to keep our distance, as if that night had never happened. Meanwhile, I was secretly carrying out my own plans. Emily told me that the cause of death of Uncle John's son, Peter, was suspicious. Peter was 3 years older than me, and Uncle John used to bring him to our house to play when we were kids. In my memory, he was a very determined person who refused the career path Uncle John had arranged for him and insisted on becoming a pilot. They had a big fight over it. It was raining heavily outside, and he ran out. Later, Uncle John received news of his death. That night, a red sports car ran over Peter for several kilometers. The investigation concluded quickly. The driver, who had lost money gambling and was intoxicated, just wanted to vent his anger, and Peter happened to be his unfortunate target. Uncle John's family was devastated for many years because of this. In reality, the true culprit was David. After realizing the trouble he had caused, he sought help from Ethan's father. Upon learning that David had hit Peter, Ethan's father beat him severely. Although he feared Peter's family's influence, he couldn't bear to see his own son go to jail. In the end, he found someone to take all the blame for David. Who would have thought that David would keep a surveillance video from the street as a trophy? The video clearly recorded everything, including David's face. If I could give this video to Uncle John, he would never let David off the hook. That weekend, I went home to celebrate Dad's birthday and was surprised not to see Uncle John there. Given Dad and Uncle John's friendship, he wouldn't miss such an occasion.
Is Uncle John busy today?
I asked, my mouth full of Mom's sweet and sour ribs. Dad sighed and said,
They had finally come to terms with everything over the past 2 years. But a few days ago, they received an anonymous package.
My heart skipped a beat. Dad continued.
It was a USB drive with the truth about Peter's accident. After watching it, they were both devastated and vowed to make the culprit pay.
I tried to control my expression, but my hand holding the chopsticks trembled slightly. Besides Emily and me, who else could know about this?
Sophia, you look pale. Are you feeling unwell?
I shook my head and absent-mindedly finished my meal before leaving.
What? Is there someone else who came back from 10 years in the future like me?
I moved the phone slightly away from my ear.
It's possible.
David has always been arrogant and has offended so many people. Now we don't even need to take action ourselves.
Emily's voice was intermittent, and for some reason, Ethan's image flashed in my mind. After hanging up, I opened an app that showed David was currently at his villa. These days, I often observed David's whereabouts and found his life very monotonous either at work, at a bar, or at home. A week later, in the morning, just as I sat down in the office, there was a ding sound. The previously dark screen lit up, and I picked it up to see the daily news push. The headline read, "Last night, an explosion occurred in the Ishiway district of our city, initially investigated as a gas leak."
Wasn't David's home in Ishiway district?
I clicked on the news details, which reported that the deceased was a man in his 20s with the surname Sun, found without any signs of life. Below was a picture of the scene from last night. The raging fire spread wildly, taking 3 whole hours to extinguish. The area he lived in was relatively sparse, with no other casualties reported. I exhaled, unable to describe the feeling in my heart. David never knew that his mother was killed by his father, living his entire life in deception. I deleted the app and his contact information. Ethan should know by now too. After a long day at work, I dragged my exhausted body to the underground parking lot. A chill ran down my spine, giving me an uncomfortable feeling of being watched. I turned abruptly and saw a figure quickly dart behind a wall. Taking a deep breath, I walked over. As I got closer, we both jumped in surprise.
Why are you following me?
I scrutinized the person in front of me with sharp eyes. It was the actress Ethan had saved before, now crouching on the ground, looking panicked.
Ms. One, I was just passing by.
I snatched the phone she was hiding in her arms and scrolled through it, my body stiffening. Her chat history with Ethan was filled with photos of me from various angles.
Even though Ethan saved you, this is quite ungrateful of you.
I said, squatting in front of her, enunciating each word, then handed the phone back to her.
I'm sorry, I was always Mr. Su's person. Mr. Su arranged for me to join the company. He knew about Liam's scheme long ago and had me protect you in secret. The incident at the club was just to gather evidence of his illicit activities. Now that Liam is in custody, my task is to report your daily activities to Mr. Su.
I stared at her blankly, scenes flashing through my mind. How did Ethan know? Suddenly, I thought of the anonymous package sent to Uncle John, and a bold guess formed in my mind. As I drove out of the parking lot, I dialed Ethan's number.
Where are you?
At your doorstep.
It was rush hour, and the traffic was heavy, with honking all around, making my already anxious mood even more agitated. When I opened the door, I saw Ethan sitting on the sofa, resting, one arm on the armrest, supporting his head. Hearing the door open, he slowly opened his eyes and smiled at me.
You know everything.
In an instant, I rushed over and hugged him, the rustling of clothes and the faint scent of men's cologne surrounding me.
I'm sorry, and thank you.
Sorry for not recognizing your feelings all these years, and thank you for helping me again despite having memories from 10 years later.
He reached out and hugged me back, whispering in my ear.
Aren't you angry?
I responded with a passionate and deep kiss. I explained everything that had happened recently. Through his narration, I learned that after his death 10 years later, his strong attachment brought him back to the present. The setting sun generously bestowed its last light on the people living on this land. In the large room, two figures clung tightly to each other, quiet and beautiful.